Welcome to members of the ISU community, the Creative Writing Program, and to the friends and family who have come here today to celebrate our graduates for the Spring 2026 MFA Thesis Fest. I'm Deb Marquardt, English faculty member and the coordinator of the Creative Writing Program. We're thrilled to host this event to hear our 8 MFA graduates read from their MFA theses. Behind each of the short excerpts that you'll hear read today, please know that pages and pages of drafts and hours of revision, and no small amount of tears probably, were expended to curate the words, images, and stories that comprise these book-length volumes of theses that they have all successfully defended, save one who will defend this coming week. Spring is always a poignant season for an educator because it's the time when we say goodbye to these aspiring writers with whom we've worked for 3 years. We first met them on paper in the spring of 2023 when they made application to our program. And then they arrived in person and were even more impressive and remarkable than their test scores and CVs could ever convey. They're dreamers and storytellers, tricksters and visionaries, all of them. And we know they will go out into the world and work their magic. We also know that we'll hear back from them because they'll need letters of recommendation from us. This spring is also special because it marks the 20th anniversary of the date of April 2006 when the proposal for this unique MFA program in creative writing and environment was approved by the Iowa Board of Regents. So we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. And this spring is poignant because it marks the impending retirement of 2 of our beloved creative writing colleagues, Chrisa Menifee and KL Kenny Cook, who are seated right over here. They've asked us not to eulogize them because they are not going anywhere. They will be very much around, they've told us, and so we will properly celebrate them next fall when we have our Home Voices Festival, in which we invite alums of our program to come back and read books that they have recently published. But I thought it would be appropriate to take a moment to acknowledge their contribution via a 3-step process in which I'll begin with description, then proceed to praise, followed by a short period of asking questions. For the families, this is an inside joke. It's one of Professor Cook's workshops. Will recognize that this is his trademark feedback method. Okay, so the all-knowing app Workday that controls so much of our lives here at ISU tells me that Chrisa and Kenny have been here on faculty for 12 years, 8 months, and 29 days and counting, and they are counting. And I often say that we stole them from Prescott College in Arizona, where they both already had established careers as creative artists, pedagogues, and administrators. They risked a mid-career leap to join us here at ISU, and we're forever grateful for their bravery. They joined our MFA faculty, and they brought all of their skills, creativity, and savvy to bear in the task of supporting, protecting, and building excellence in our program. Between the 2 of them, they're a dynamic duo. They brought mastery to every genre of creative writing and more, including directing, filmmaking, script writing, acting, and we learned last weekend at the Flyway Gala, they're also exemplary dancers. Together we fought battles, experienced some sadnesses, many happinesses, but mostly celebrated the wonder of what it means to live a creative life, working and striving in the presence of inspiring creative people. Artists thrive in community, and Krisa and Kenny have created that foundation in which all of us can prosper. And for that, we thank you and wish you all the very best. Over the last few months, I have inadvertently referred to your retirement as your graduation. And so today we celebrate your matriculation along with this excellent group of talented writers into your own lives as independent, full-time writers and artists. One of our favorite books in the program is Lewis Hyde's The Gift. It celebrates the gift economy of art as a respite and a hedge against a culture increasingly governed by money and commodification. Hyde wrote about the creative process. The passage into mystery always refreshes. If, when we work, we can look once a day upon the face of mystery, then our labor satisfies. We are lightened when our gifts rise from pools we cannot fathom. Then we know they are not a solitary egotism, and they are inexhaustible. And so, dear colleagues, may the mystery and wonder of creativity always be with you in this next exciting adventure of your lives. And as a token of our appreciation, the Department of English has asked us to offer you this vase, commemorating your time here at ISU. It's by a local artist, Carolyn Fries. Can we just all join me in thanking Kenny and Gracie for the vase? Okay, so I'm also going to introduce the first reader today. I'm really happy to make this introduction of Nathan Vinyl Kane, who I worked with on a beautiful poetry collection. And I think, Nathan, I'm mostly going to miss your incredibly exuberant presence and your big laugh. It's been wonderful to have you here at ISU, and it'll be a thrill to know you for years to come. Nathan Vinyl Kane is a writer, community organizer, environmentalist, and a recovering lobbyist from Alma, Wisconsin. He grew up on a farm near the Mississippi, and his rural background has shaped both his professional career in environmental policy and his writing. While at Iowa State, he has won 3 awards for his teaching and 2 for his leadership in the community. Let's get this started with Nathan Vinyl Kane.
Thank you, Deb. That was very sweet. So my thesis is a book of poetry about a house fire that my family and I experienced back in 2019. So each poem has an item in it that was either in the fire or that I imagined to have been in the fire. And I use it as a jumping off point to talk about domesticity, masculinity, memory, the way that memory is encapsulated in different objects, and like we all have keepsake objects like that. So the poems that I've decided to read are in honor of my family who could make it today, and then each of them has an item that is like embedded in the poem that is kind of relative to what was in the fire. So the first poem is to my dad's guitar that he barely played. And the title is Ode to My Father's Dancing. He says he has no rhythm, no hop step, no bop talent, no cultured sway, because he bombed some dumb boarding school test when he was 11. He never really tried the guitar we got him. Never danced with me until his 85th birthday during frozen February. We spun some big band jams, plucked from Creole peppers, sunshine, and ocean spray. Sway of my shimmy shoulders beckoned him to slide stocking feet over hardwood. I tried spinning him, but he almost tumbled, so I released him. Hands out like a skier, The white-bearded marching step shuffle, close enough to the beats of saxophone blues, sacred steel guitar slide, double bass kicking rocks down Bourbon Street. With our rosy cheeks, salt-licked schoolboy grins, I told him after, I wish I'd found dancing sooner. A quiet look snuck into his green eyes. I do too. Throughout the book, I tie some of the family trauma that my family experienced to the intergenerational trauma that my ancestors experienced. So both sides of my family have a lot of Irish blood. One side is Catholic, one side is Protestant. And if that doesn't explain some of the divisions in the family, I don't know what does. So this is an ode to the 5-pound bag of potatoes that was in the pantry of the house. Lumpy, bumpy yellow gems pulled from blessed earth, placed in our rusty wheelbarrow, their mud scrubbed by finger pads, wind dried, as we swung each other barefoot on coarse kitchen tile, fiddle song on the stereo. Ancestor dance of gleeful bagpipes, cowskin drums, dirty feet stomp on barn floors, dark ale spilled on bar stools, Irish kisses stolen like Irish land under a fingernail moon, remembered in revolutionary songs sung over pepper spice corned beef and baby reds fried in butter. Their cream flesh devoured by Quechua and Andean farmers 4,000 years before Egypt carved the limestone for her pyramids, and over 100 generations before the potato immigrated to Europe on sway-backed slave ships. When the glint of a Gaelic nation-state glimmered in the green eyes of our foremothers hunched around sooty fireplaces, their crop rotted of water mold, a late blight, the British king's excuse to steal more land, raise rents higher, arrest any dissenters, and ship them to foreign lands. Our grandmothers gave their thanks with courteous Molotov cocktails and a chorus of hallelujahs. Bright banjos strum to the beats of a grave tambourine, and my mom stirs cream and butter, sea salt into spud mash. She reminds my big city sister, for the third time, these taters came from our farm. As my uncle's grease fingers pull apart turkey breasts, my dad scoops stuffing, and I crack black pepper and dash rosemary into brown gravy. Thickened, rich with flour, we give thanks, gather around card tables, talk tariffs, immigration raids, US aid cuts, and plot revolution over pints of Guinness. So this is a song, or this is a poem, and the item is one of the shawls that my mom lost during the fire. Ode to my mother's dancing. Black leather butch hi-hats wrapped to the snap of snare drums, bass kicks pop to electric weed smoke solos. This ballad of mom's childhood anger at parental oppression drips with nostalgia. Mom's wings uncurl as she stirs the curry, stovetop sway, only a quarter bop behind the bass. Head bob, foot kick, almost loses her balance, arms flare wide with her purple shawl, the world's largest butterfly, who shouts her battle cry as I wander by. Hell is for children. She beckons me, a star in her eye, waits for my lead so she can twirl herself before spinning me. Her numb feet in hiking boots and AFOs stomp on my stocking toes as punk rock reverbs around the kitchen. Thank you, Mom, for inventing the old lady hammer toe slide. So this last one is for my adopted grandmother, Judy. So she died about 10 years ago now. 15 years ago? A long time ago. But she lives on in my heart. And the item from this poem is the pancakes my father would make me every morning before school. Grandmother Stream. Come here, little one, sit a while and wonder. Set down the cell phone weight of expectation for girls or grades, the grind promise of success that just grinds you down from rock to stone to sand. Cool sand at the edge of my stream. Focus on that, little one. Not those bicep boys who pinch your belly fat, or their gossip girls like blue jays who steal your sunflower seeds and never let you sit at their lunch table. Lay here, little one, listen to the turtles as they ponder warm rocks and sunny spots. Let my trickle beat loosen your shoulders and stretch your spine. Breathe. With me, little one. Taste the sky blue songs of buntings. They're light, airy like blueberry cream, sweet like Mrs. Butterworth's syrup on the pancakes Dad made you every morning before school. Close your eyes, little one. Smell the sunshine, earth iron scent of dirt and grass breath on the breeze. Don't worry about being anybody. Let that mask drip off. Let the world go so you can come back. Breathe, little one. Just breathe. So it's my honor to introduce the next writer tonight, a dear friend of mine, T.J. Benson, who is a Nigerian writer and visual artist whose first novel, The Madhouse, was published by Penguin Random House and translated into Arabic by Al Rabi Publishers in Egypt in 2023. He has received residencies from Art Omi, New York, Montague Moore, Scotland, and the International Writing Program at the University of Iowa. He was selected for the Jan Michalowski Foundation residency in Switzerland and will have a stage performance of his work in Chicago next spring, supported by the Folger Shakespeare Library. Warm round of applause for T.J. Benson.
Hello, everyone. I'm kind of in shock to be here. It's been fun coming to Thesis Fest for the graduate students over the years, and it's us. In John Bega's essay published on Granta, Go Tell the Time, he thinks about the time of our bodies and the time out in the world, so puberty or historical events, and even going back to the Anthropocene. So there's different times. And in many African cosmologies where I come from, time is not something you spend like money. Or in, love sometimes. But time is something that you make, like money, I guess. But I have to say, coming to study creative writing in my 30s, I was told that it was going to be a waste of time. But I have to tell you all, this program came to me on time, and to my friends, all of you, my friends now, they are stuck with me, so it's been an honor to make time with you. I'll be reading from Harvest Moon for my thesis. I have a short story cycle that begins in prehistoric Nigeria, where I'm from, and then going forward into the post capitalist future. But I have a tiny parable, which is kind of a respite to that industrial time. Water found more water and became the most beautiful creature in the universe. Earth and moon circled each other in a fight to win her love. After an eternity of fighting, they asked her to choose. To look at the moon was to become its glimmering silver. But Earth won her over, for he had life. And in light, he wore many colors of the sky: red, blue, purple, and even gold. Water nurtured life and birthed more beauty: trees, clouds, and rocks. In the light of day, the moon was invisible with jealousy. One night, a mysterious thing happened. Light left, and all the beautiful colors disappeared. All that was left to reflect was black. In blind despair, water crashed to the shores of sleeping Earth to wake him up and make him explain. The Earth was fast asleep, dizzy with its own spin around itself. Then moon came with its silvery light to woo water once more, promising an eternal light of silver. Water rushed up to the moon but fell back at the horror of betraying sleeping Earth. When morning came and light returned, she reflected all the colors of Earth as if nothing had happened. When night came again, she was restless with dissatisfaction. The moon had come to woo her again. Water spent her days reflecting the colors of the Earth and her nights pushing away from the silvery love of the moon. It is from this dilemma that time was born. Thank you. I have the honor to introduce Michaela Edelson. It's been such a treat to get to know her over the years and co-manage the Flyway Journal. Michaela is hardworking. What you won't see in this bio is that Michaela is relentless. She's hardworking. She gets things done. She cuts straight through the bullshit. And I'll see more later. Well, Michaela is originally from Oregon and pursued environmental policy studies and worked for 8 years before transitioning into creative writing. Her thesis, Searching for Kami, Encountering Environmental Legacy in Japanese Shinto, recounts her travel through Japan on a partial scholarship from ALS in England to reckon with human nature, interaction, and different legacies of being. After graduation, Michaela intends to move back to Oregon with her cat, Professor Peter Elbow, and participate in a self-organized writing sabbatical, in brackets, unemployment. I beseech you all to spend time with Michaela because every time, she's not working, she's in Japan or Africa or Europe, she's probably traveled the most around us. But wherever she goes, her heart is open. And I'll always be grateful that she opened her heart to us. So, welcome.
Thank you, TJ. Thanks all for coming today. So my book explores environmentalism through the lens of Shinto. And Shinto is a Japanese animist religion that many scholars and practitioners identify as a nature religion. And then Kami, from the title, are the deities of Shinto, so the spirits that are intimately related to people and the land. I'll be reading part of an earlier chapter in my manuscript to offer some context for what Shinto is and establish that environmental connection and critique that is developed further in the book. So, Kamakura. On the 1.5-hour train ride south to the coastal town of Kamakura, the city sprawls and sprawls before rice paddies begin to disrupt the endless sea of human expansion. The train stations welcome and deposit a new mix of people, mostly students at this hour, but some elderly too. Squeezed from the station, they waddle forward to find their seats. The man next to me cracks open a fresh beer at the great hour of 10 a.m. Together we power through the countryside, through the rice fields, until a mountain forces us inside, tunnels transporting. One idyllic snapshot of the Japanese countryside, another idyllic snapshot of the Japanese countryside, another idyllic snapshot, darkness in between. The rush of travel has found me again, the exhilaration of seeing new, experiencing different, communing with people and cultures I don't yet know, and perhaps this is why I am in Japan seeking environmental solutions when a book or the internet would be a more sustainable approach. Though what are the energy and water requirements necessary for book publication and data processing centers? I'm a traveler at heart. 40 countries and counting, my brain and body are ingrained to leave to answer questions of who I am and what the world is, to understand another way of doing, another way of being. Before I traveled to Southeast Asia and India, before the MFA program, before I even started my job at the World Wildlife Fund, after getting my bachelor's and master's in environmental policy, I wandered aimlessly in Eastern Europe for 6 months as a 23-year-old growing from girl to woman. I dismantled the school to work to death pipeline I learned growing up and transformed my straight-A-seeking teacher's pet persona into someone who sees the school and work are not the pinnacle of existence, that the real world is beyond a computer screen. And years later, when work became unfulfilling, as environmental crises seemed insurmountable, I turned back to travel to remind me what life could actually offer. At Kamakura, I walked through the torii gate to the shopping street, a portal to the heavenly realm. Street food, trinkets, a delicious blueberry honey lemon drink. The way to the shrine is forward, through the consumerism, across the traffic street, through another torii gate large and boastful, past the pond of lotus leaves spreading over the surface, over the red fence curved bridge, and up the many stairs. I stop at the Temazuya, the purification well that rests at the entrance to most shrines. With water spouting from a dragon mouth, I take one of the metal ladles in my right hand, a round tin attached to a bamboo stick, collect the flowing water and pour some over my left hand. And I shift the ladle to my left hand, pour the water over my right hand, switch hands again, cup my left palm to form a bowl, bring the water to my mouth, purify both body and mind before purifying my left hand once more. Then rinse the ladle stem by holding it vertical, pouring the remaining contents and purifying it for the next person. Purification is an important theme in Shinto. The well, the paper streamers draped around sacred trees, the wands of paper streamers purifying the pious, cleansing the spaces. This purification originates in Shinto mythology when the kami Izanagi travels to the netherworld to retrieve his sister lover Azanami after she gives birth to the kami of fire and dies. During his journey, Azanagi breaks the promise not to look at Azanami's corpse, and in so doing, becomes tainted by the putrescence of death. Upon returning, Izanami is able to purify his body and soul from evil contamination and return to his natural state. The legacy of this myth remains throughout Shinto rituals and rites. In addition to routine practice of purification for priests and parishioners, annual rites ensured a broader and more thorough scope of cleansing. In Ecology of Religion, its scope and methodology, Ake Hultkrantz discusses how contemporary religious features are often a product from earlier ecological patterns, which further contextualize the historic appeal for purification. The great purification ritual of the 6th day of the 6th month, the longevity of which is documented in Sei Shonagen's The Pill Book, fits within the historic and contemporary context of the rainy season that hosted flooding, typhoons, humidity-breeding pests, and standing water in paddy fields to breed disease. Anxiety surrounding both physical health and the success of the rice harvest propagated. Purification rituals alleviated both the physical and spiritual pollutants of the summer season. Correspondingly, in the winter before the new year, another great purification ritual is observed through removing the dust and grime, or susu, soot, from the household. These purification rituals to physically purify both self and home, and to spiritually call for a success in rice harvest and the new year, are legacies from traditional environmental interactions, if not the myths themselves. Does this not parallel the theory behind Jewish and Muslim religious restrictions banning pork due to past poor preservation practices, or how men get circumcised to alleviate the past pollutions of pre-modern plumbing? What of Catholicism's baptism, or all the Christian proverbs praising purity, where if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. John 1:9. I looked for parallels with what I know. John Nelson, a Westerner who lived and worked in a shrine in Nagasaki for a year, makes parallels between purification and Western religious beliefs. He claims that Shinto holds basic human nature, incapable of being permanently poisoned or distorted by what is known in the West as sin. Such Western appropriated sins that can alter a soul are not interpreted the same in Shinto. Defilements such as disease, wounds, bestiality, menstruation, leprosy, witchcraft, and entering rice fields, among others, are called sumi and are treated as temporary separations from the balance of body, soul, and world. Sumi are pollutions that are accepted as a fact of existence but don't necessarily hold a negative or positive distinction and can be obliterated completely upon purification. Shinto doesn't label sumi as good or evil, they just are features of human existence. But the Narito, the ritual text of Shinto, do make a distinction between sumi along heavenly and earthly or human demarcations. Heavenly sins include breaking down the ridges, covering up the ditches, releasing the irrigation sluices, double planting, setting up stakes, skinning alive, skinning backwards, and defecation. While earthly sins include cutting living flesh, white leprosy, the sin of violating one's own mother, violating one's own child, violating a mother and her child or a child and her mother, the sin of transgression with animals, killing animals, and the sin of witchcraft. There is a clear disjunction between the type and severity of heavenly and earthly sins, whereas the former aligns with agriculture, human nature, for defecation. The latter aligns with Western conceptions of sin, depicting immoral human acts that harm others. The distinction emphasizes how human acts are separate from divinity, but also how agriculture is inherently divine and humanity is inherently earthly or impure. Is this another legacy of early ecological patterns to where land and food are the source of life and humans all but take it away? Regardless, both classifications of sumi, the heavenly and the earthly, the agricultural and the human, can be taken into the great ocean, out to the great river, and cast away. All sins can absolve with the waters of purification. I searched for mythological condemnation of my species, my global society that has cut living flesh, has violated our Mother Earth and her future children. I understand that humans are inherently pure, but is anything purely pure? I understand that Christians believe we are all born in sin until we commit self fully to the one God that saves, but in Shinto it is not divinity that grants purity, but rather the divine natural. As Stuart Picken maintains, the West embodies the divine in God the Father, and we are his children seeking his good grace. Shinto traces our lineage back to the kami. Purifying our spirits puts us back in touch with the divinity of nature as expressed by our true parents, the kami of the earth. No commitment to an external savior, just commitment to spirit and self and earth. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce Zach Vukovich. Zach is a writer and painter from Colorado. His thesis, Alpenglow, is a short story collection that examines grief through troubled and sometimes troublesome characters who, in trying to resolve their grief, are often defined by what they say or do rather than what they think or feel. Set primarily in the mountains of Colorado, the collection as a whole explores literal and metaphorical instances of alpenglow, the reddish glow on the horizon at sunrise and sunset.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to start by just reading from my acknowledgments from my thesis, just to thank the people in the room. First, I'd like to thank Kenny Cook for his belief in me as a fiction writer and his guidance throughout this project. Having entered this MFA program as a poet, his encouragement and belief in my fiction have been paramount in giving me the courage to step into this new genre. Furthermore, his insistence on both excellence and kindness in the creative writing workshop has become something I wish to bring into my own teaching. Deborah Marquardt for her tireless commitment to her students and the MFA program at large. Barbara Walton for her encouragement in both my painting and writing, Linda Shank for her teachings on speaking the same language and narrative gaps, Carissa Menefe for her guidance, particularly early on in the program. Deep thanks to my cohort, all the 8 reading today, Tara Labovich, Matt Amy, and Eleanor Tish for their friendship, support, and kind and close attention they paid to my work over the course of this program. It's been an endless joy to write alongside them over the past 3 years. To everyone I've met and worked with, whether in workshop or in class or in my visual arts classes, thank you. To my friends at the dog park mafia, for their daily bravery of the elements through ice, rain, and snow over the past 3 years, and the joy they've brought to me and my dog Otis. To my dog Otis, to Elnaz Mazrur for her calm and supportive presence, to the places that inspired these stories, Eagle, Colorado, Durango, Colorado, Homer, Alaska, Berlin, Germany, Toronto, Ontario, to my parents, to my granny, to my sister Justine, to my late grandpa Paul, and to my late younger brother Jake, whose short life on Earth has been an inspiration to all who knew him. Special shout out because today would be his 26th birthday. Okay, now I'm going to read. So this is the title story of the short story collection called Alpenglow. Alpenglow. It all started when I let them steal the golf cart out of the guard shack. It wasn't that I wanted them to steal it. In fact, I was opposed to it. I've always been opposed to things like that. But when they came for the cart, there were 2 of them. I was in the back of the cart shack cleaning. I was surrounded by the carts, and when I looked up at them, they were just silhouettes. Just figures, all in black with their hoods up. They said, "Silas." They didn't come to the back. They just stood there at the front of the barn with their hands in their pockets. I didn't think much of it at first. The guys who worked there always had their hoods up. I thought it was them. It was early, before we opened. But then I got a little closer and I saw that it was Billy and Dave Best. They said, "Silas, give us a cart." What do you want a golf cart for?" I said. "Just give us a cart," they said. "I can't," I said. "I'll get fired." They were my friends, they said. "We'll bring it right back," they said. "Don't worry." I didn't say anything. I couldn't, I guess. They both got into the cart, and then I saw them on the cart path. Then they were up the road, passing the 16th tee box. They crested a hill and merged with the sidewalk that ran alongside the highway. The cart was just a dot in the landscape then. They looked absurd, out of place, going against traffic like that. They took the golf cart all the way up to a party in the mountains outside of town. The party was an hour away by back roads, and they were steep dirt roads, mostly used by hunters, roads with deep treaded ruts. I still don't believe they got there on their own. Someone with a big truck must have picked them up. When I arrived at the party, after being interviewed by the police, the first thing that happened to me was that Dave Best took my phone and he threw it in a pond. He threw it high up in the air and it landed face down on the scum of the surface, and I watched it sink. The story about the golf cart had gotten around. I was a pushover now. I was a bigger dude too. People tried to fight me the whole night. Billy kept defending me, but then Billy got drunk himself and decided he too wanted to fight me. I knew I couldn't ignore him or get out of it, so I thought, okay, I have to fight. I tried talking him out of it a little bit, but then I looked in his eyes. They had that glossed over, absent look, and I realized that he wouldn't hear anything I said. A crowd had gathered around us, and Billy came up and shoved me. Even then, I was still trying to talk him down, talk him out of it. But he kept going. He shoved me again, and then he went in to tackle me. I don't know what happened to me then. As soon as my back slammed into the ground, with him on top of me, all my anger came out. Anger that had just been sitting there that I didn't know about. I had so much of it. I threw him off me and I got on top of him and I didn't care about anything anymore. I didn't care if I looked stupid when I fought or what people thought of me. I just closed my eyes and punched. I punched him in the face and in the weird places like the neck and the shoulder. I just attacked him. People saw this and the wildness of my anger, the danger of it, and they pulled me off him. I think people were shocked at first, but then others came and clapped me on the back and told me good job. Even Billy, with a bloodied face and swollen lip, came up to me and said, "Come here, brother," and embraced me. After that, I told myself I would not go back to the person I was before. My boss cornered me the next day at work. I thought he was coming to fire me. I was in the back of the cart barn in the same place I was in when Billy and Dave Best had come the day before. "Silas," he said, "I want to have a word about what happened yesterday." I was afraid. I began doing what I usually did, looking at the ground, not making eye contact. "Sure," I said. I got out of the cart I was cleaning and walked over to him. "I spoke with the police this morning," he said. "It seems like you were threatened by those guys, Billy and Dave." He leaned against the cart and made himself comfortable. "I understand that letting them take the cart was an act of self-preservation," he said, "a way of protecting yourself. I understand. At your age, there are so many bullies, and from what I gathered from the police, these guys are bad ones." I didn't like the way he was going about it. Then his wife came into the cart barn too. His wife was hot, looked like Gwyneth Paltrow. She always had a kind, relaxed look on her face, like nothing could really get inside and disturb her. But that day, she had a serious look, like she was carrying around some important emotion that would break if she smiled at me. I felt like shit then, because I knew it was because of me that she had that look on her face. "If something like that ever happens again, use the walkie-talkie. Talk to me. I can help you," he said. "I want to help you." I was looking at the ground again, but I could feel him trying to make a kind face at me. And there was his wife, pitying me too. I felt both their eyes on me. Then I did the thing that got me in real trouble. I walked over to the cart, the one he had been leaning on while talking to me. I took it, turned the key to start it, and drove out of the cart barn. I didn't care if he was still leaning on it. I drove it through the parking lot, took a left, and drove it onto the sidewalk, past the tee box on the 16th hole, and up to the main road. It didn't take long for the police to find me. They came while I was still on the main road. By then I decided just to take the cart to my house. The officer driving the cop car, Jed, had interviewed me the day before. They had let me off with a warning because I didn't have a criminal history, but I knew it would be different now. He turned on the sirens and slowed down. He rolled down the window. "Silas," Jed said. He was calm. "Pull over." I ignored him. He said it a few times, then he gave up. He sped up and went to the next break in the sidewalk. He blocked the crosswalk with the car and stood in front of it, waiting for me with his arms on his hips. But I didn't slow down. I knew I was going down, so I thought I'd do something that people would talk about for a long time after that. Show everyone that I wasn't a scared person anymore. I kept my foot on the gas and I just kept going toward him. I went until he moved out of the way and I crashed into the car. When I was being booked that afternoon, I was forced to wait in the lobby while they processed some paperwork. Jed was sitting next to me. I could see the mountains out of the dirty window. The mountains were covered in what's called alpenglow. I thought then that was when the colors of the sunset hit the top of the mountain and turned the peak pink. I thought it was a matter of one thing, the sunset simply rubbing off on something else. I looked at it for as long as I could. I thought it would be a long time until I saw anything beautiful like that, but I was wrong about things then. Thank you.
Okay, those were our first 4 readers. Now we're going to have about a 10-minute intermission. Our amazing photographer, Eric, is going to be taking pictures of people here behind this in front of this backdrop, if anybody's interested. Also in the back corner over there, there's a space to write letters to the graduates and put it in their bags. There's also a cool Mad Libs. I don't know who made that. And then there's some food. So yeah, don't go far. 10 minutes, we'll do the next 4. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Oh, this is so fun. So is it muted right now or like?
No, right now actually you're speaking into the mic. It's
Oh, it's here.
yeah, it's
Hi.
listening to you're listening to the computer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Cool. How can you tell who's viewing?
Oh, it's when you go to the live stream here.
Oh, wow.
So but right now so far we have 14 views right now, only 4 people
Only
are
four.
connected.
That's fair.
There you
That's
go,
fair.
and they sent.
Oh, that's great.
You're
Also,
a professional photographer around here. The guy with the camera
Eric.
slung around his shoulder.
Yeah.
You may want to get a family shot.
That's a great
Let
idea.
me round people up. And
Absolutely.
Then I'll,
You can see like over there in the photo group. Yeah.
yeah, we're up front, put ones in the restroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So, if there's time at this break, if not, maybe after.
After works, of course. Yeah. I'll be here. Great, great.
to take your seats, and we're just gonna get started with our last four readers. I did my best.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Achilles. This bio was written by Molly Curtis, proud childhood friend and long-suffering editor of Achilles Seastrom. After 20 years and a combined 5 English degrees, I think I can safely say no one has read more of Achilles' work than I have. One of the most consistent joys of my life has been witnessing his evolution as an author across widely ranging genres and subjects. Novels about pirate empires, cop procedurals with a heavy amount of smut, song lyrics honoring 16th century Scottish cannibals, and most recently, a poem about buttholes. Suffice it to say, Achilles has become a truly masterful storyteller who continues to make waves, but I'd like to draw special attention to his recent work in environmental journalism. He would never announce this himself, but he recently learned that his work has inspired sizable donations to the Iowa National Heritage Foundation and made a direct impact on environmental protection. What an incredible accomplishment to be able to celebrate here with you all. Today, on the eve of Achilles' 30th birthday, I can also say that his body of work has remained more memorable and influential to me than any other single author I've ever read. He's made me laugh, he's made me cry, and most importantly, he's made me so, so proud. Achilles Seastrom, everybody.
Molly showed me an earlier draft of that. It was not as nice. She was supposed to be here today, and then she got Friday and Saturday confused, and so I forced her to write that as restitution. I'm so proud of all of you, and I can't believe 3 years is over. This is insane. I'm gonna read now. So this is not an excerpt of my thesis. It's an abridged version of an essay, because I don't believe in cutting my essays into pieces. And I think you deserve the whole thing. So this is an essay called Into the Abyss. The most anticipated day of Pioneer Camp was the day of the chicken beheading. At Pioneer Camp, we did farm chores and ate coarse bread. A group of trained men provided a demonstration on the old sawmill. My childhood friend is making a face. As a collective, we milked a goat one pole at a time, who happened to have the same name as me. In the afternoon, after a lunch of white beans, we sat around a dinner table in the replication farmhouse and pretended to write journals about our experience settling the West. At the end of the week, we gathered in the farmhouse's little yard like villagers in the town square. Further back, the head of the Dickinson County Historical Society said every year, "There's going to be blood." The circle of little children widened. The head of the Dickinson County Historical Society pulled a chicken from the coop. The chicken beat its wings against the tyranny of his grip. The head of the DCHS laid the chicken out on a stump and quickly dispatched it with an axe. Well, it's a beheading. Then he let the chicken's decapitated body go, and children screamed or cheered while the dying body ran around the yard. The chicken body pounded itself off the ground. It ran towards a group of children that bubbled out and let the circle burst to avoid the animal body, driven by nerves flaming out and dying. Its wings still beat. I waited for the endless depths of the headless chicken neck to turn towards me, convinced that I would stand my ground and look into its dark abyss. We were born to the myth of the Wild West, but because my siblings and I and the other kids who we grew up with were born into the myth, we were especially ill-suited to it. The Wild West isn't meant to be inherited, but taken with bullets and grit and grim misfortune. The Wild West is for people with the will to make themselves. By contrast, the myths made us. The children I grew up with came to our identities by way of Wild Bill Hickok, who was marshal in Abilene for a few months before he shot someone and had to leave, or by Dwight D. Eisenhower or the Chisholm Trail. We found ourselves in the weathered buildings of old Abilene town off Highway 15, or at the world's largest belt buckle, raised to complement the former world's largest spur. Abilene is a place boiling over in its own history. After growing up in USA Today's best historic small town, I failed to launch into the real world. I'd never given much thought to the future. I had dreams and goals like every kid, but my dreams seemed like things that would materialize in the pages of a history book the way things at home always had. Thoreau warns about children like me, those too versed in books and history and not enough in experience or the present. Originally developed and presented as a talk over the last decade of his life, Thoreau's famous essay, Walking, was published in The Atlantic after his death. The essay gave us the tagline oft printed on the spare tire covers of Jeeps, "In wildness is the preservation of the world." Wildness is many things to Thoreau. It is the blossom on a white pine tree, the meandering stream seeking its quickest path to the ocean. It is a cow that broke through a fence and the silent seed settled inside all of us, awaiting release. It is the untamed, the uncontrollable, the dawn and the sunset, the boldest beings, the most calloused hands. It is the student I was not, who learned by action. It is the ferocity and fervor and tenacity of life. I've never been able to get over the needling frustration that Thoreau lived in a fundamentally different kind of nature than we do. After I graduated with my first master's, I attended a national conference where a renowned scholar and biographer of Thoreau and Barry Lopez was presenting. When I was growing up, the Thoreau biographer began, there were more butterflies. She described a childhood walking through a green world. She talked about shirking her school duties to sit on a hill overlooking the high school football field where she studied Walden. I'd spent more time frowning at Thoreau's walking by then. When I had begun to write about the world, I had worried about critiquing the god of environmental writing. By the time I sat in that convention center in Oregon, I had begun to insist that Thoreau's perspective on nature was limited. He lived in a time more lush and populous of butterflies. I lived in a time of wildfires and hurricanes that consumed the world. Thoreau had taught people to admire the first, but we have to teach people to love the second. As if addressing the questions I had come to ask, the Thoreau biographer said, even now in my lifetime, that nature I grew up with is gone. In walking, Thoreau calls nature at different points wilderness, wildness, and the West. He juxtaposes this with civilization, which he also calls the East. As Thoreau tells it, civilization is a terrible, looming presence that rises from the east to prey upon the wild and free creatures of the west. If we're thinking of things through the lens of European history, this wasn't an inaccurate way to describe the East and West at the time. The eastern forces of European colonialism stalked nature across the western expanses of America and destroyed things as it went. In Walking, Thoreau writes, "Eastward I go free, eastward I go only by force, but westward I go free." I wanted to go freely too, to be free in the wild world. But I grew up in a world where going westward, going towards nature, meant staring down the terror that climate change and environmental disasters hurl upon the shores of a place once full of promise. If we want to take Thoreau's advice and go wild into wildness, we first have to know how terrifying this choice is. 1 year at Pioneer Camp, I resolved myself to watch the entire time as the chicken died. It moved towards my side of the circle, silent when it should have been squawking. When it came close to me, I struggled not to step back. Around me, children screeched and the bubble popped. I trembled against the instinctual urge to step away from the terror of the headless, gaping maw of the cluckless chicken. The body of the chicken rushed towards me, nerves firing like they never had before. I've tried to leave the Wild West cowtown myths behind and go west instead. I try to embrace the dark chasm of the future and the flailing pain of the present. I try to speak to the chasm with hope and to the pain with love. At Pioneer Camp, I felt grief for the dying, pained body, but I let it come close, and when I looked into the dark throat, muscles obstinately spasming to spite death, I saw that some wildness will be preserved in the dark chasm of the future, though I may not know what that is. Take what we can from Thoreau, but then we must go ourselves, walking into our own wildness. Westward Thoreau goes free, as should we, but westward also we go into the abyss. It is my pleasure, as it has been everybody's pleasure before me, to introduce Emma Crabb, who perhaps has had more influence on me than anybody else in my cohort. She's an incredible person. I hope all of you get the chance to know her, even if it's briefly. I admire her very much, despite the fact that she is younger than me, which sometimes frustrates me, because she's better at things than me. Emma Crabb is a writer, journalist, and seventh-generation Nebraskan. She has recently published creative pieces in Iowa Field Guides and The New Territory, and she is a freelancer and podcaster who has earned national awards for her journalism. Her thesis, The Women of Covenant Ranch, is a neo-Western feminist novel that chronicles the journeys of 3 women in a Christian ranching commune following the death of the group's enigmatic leader. After graduation, Emma intends to spend her summer farming, sleeping, and writing her second book. Emma Crabb.
Okay. Hello. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay. I want to begin with just a couple thank yous. First of all, of course, to my wonderful cohort for all of the photos that you saw up there. There are 100 more memories. I'm so glad we got to have so many with each other over the past 3 years. I want to give a shout out to all of our professors. My major professor for my thesis was Kenny Cook. Kenny, I will never forget getting my first draft back of my thesis, going through your letter, and I think I encountered the phrase melodramatic vat at one point. Which it was, but I cannot begin to thank you for all of your support and guidance with my thesis. I also want to thank my family who is here, and thank you to all of the family who is here. When I was growing up, my mother very famously told me that I would never be punished for reading too much, and I did push that to its limits as a child. But I'm so grateful for everything that it has facilitated in the future. I'm going to read a short passage from my novel. This is in part 3, so a little ways down the road. But I wanted to select it because it is a scene about the ranch's branding day. So if you are not familiar with ranch life or cowboy life, you might think this is like a little bit strange to include in a book, but for ranching communities, ranching families, brandings are a community event that's such an integral part of the culture, a time to come together, a time to work together with your neighbors. And I wanted to highlight really the importance of what that means to me, while also highlighting the bittersweet feeling that comes with choosing to walk away from all of that. So without further ado, here is that. While the world warmed and spring returned to the prairie, Mercy began to take stock of her memories. She wanted to make sure they fossilized. If she let them grow hazy, she'd start questioning things. She'd think to herself, now what color did the prairie cacti bloom? Or surely the new calves weren't so small, I must be mistaken. And then there would be no other option than to return. And Mercy had no plans to return. It was the day of the cattle branding. By first light, the herd appeared on the horizon. Cattle as small as pebbles dotted the landscape, darkening it, misshapening it, a cloud of shadow and dust sweeping across the land, hooves cracking against the earth like thunder. From within the ruckus came the shouts of the cowboys. From the corral, Mercy could not see them yet. The dust was too thick and their ranks too sparse compared to all of the cattle, but she could hear them, hollering that rang into the air and stayed there, a tone petrified, a landscape that resonated at the same frequency. The cattle came closer now, and folks opened up the corrals and waited. Most of them were congregation members, but others were simply neighbors, sought-after thoroughbred breeders, bison handlers, Nebraska Cowboy Hall of Fame members. In the back, Mercy caught sight of the sheriff, who'd grown up on the ranch like the rest of them, a lawman with cowboy blood. Most of the men wouldn't dare attend a Sunday service up at the Covenant Ranch. Most of them had not even attended the funeral of Jericho McCoy, but all allegiances bent for cattleman camaraderie. The sorting began. In bellowing rips of hep hep and ha, the cowboys funneled calves into the pen, their mothers driven out to the field, that look of mad motherhood glinting in their large round eyes. Others set up tables and gathered vaccines. The propane-powered furnace hissed the branding irons red-hot, iron C-bar insignias fixed to their ends. An old ranch man with polarized lens glasses recruited Mercy and her sister Dell to clean out some 5-gallon buckets for the castrated testicles, which they'd send off with whoever wanted to fry them up and eat them, a party favor of sorts, prairie oysters. Her last branding, Mercy kept reminding herself. Once she left the ranch, nobody would understand the sentimentality of it all. Nobody in Denver or Omaha could understand that branding was Mercy's favorite day of the year. To be clear, it would not be a pleasant day. The smell alone would stay with her all week, and she hated the sound of brandings most. One couldn't dwell too much on the act of branding itself, so folks reframed it 1,000 different ways: conquest, duty, community, necessity. Mercy thought of it like birth, couldn't think too much about how it hurt, just do it and do it quickly. But it was a good day, because today she gathered with her family and her neighbors. They laughed and sweated together. They made mistakes, wrong footings and jammed fingers and hoof prints bruised into thighs, and those mistakes tempered into memories. In the thick of the dirt and the grime, sometimes she would look up at another wrangler and they'd tell Mercy about the years gone by. And she knew that in a decade, someone would bring up a memory about her, even if they wouldn't remember her face, even if they couldn't quite recall her name. Once everything was prepped, irons hot, calves sorted, vaccines prepped, breakfast arrived. Gracia brought it in her station wagon, exiting belly first, the fabric of her jacket stretched against her bum. Folks swarmed the truck, hauling out boxes of daylight donuts still warm and gooey, and the igloo coolers of pop and beer of every kind, because every cowboy had their unwavering loyalty to one brand or another. The children, dressed like dolls in miniature Western wear, chose their donuts, and because this was a special morning indeed, their mothers allowed them to drink an entire can of Sprite by themselves, perched in someone else's truck bed, the morning chill dissipating through their messy mouths, blinking the sleep out of their eyes. When the children had gone through, then the men, then the mothers, Mercy and Dell grabbed their donuts and their Pepsis and stood on the hillside, breathing in the morning air, listening to the mothers bellowing and the babies as they hooted in response. I am so excited to introduce Mariana Castro Asperos. Mariana brings such vibrancy and such life to our community. I think she also has the best coconut cookie recipe possibly in the world, which I have stolen and made for myself. I'm so sorry, but that's it's so good. If you haven't had one of those cookies, you have to. Mariana was raised in Mexico City originally she was trained as a molecular biologist and science communicator. She is currently an emerging writer and an incredible collage artist. Her thesis, Environmental Narratives Redefined, is a multi-genre piece that analyzes environmental language and examines themes of climate change, sustainability, and kinships through essays, poetry, and collage. And Mariana's section titled Caretaker's New Dictionary was actually recently exhibited in the form of a zine as part of the Climate Storytelling 2075 exhibit for New York Climate Week in 2025. So let's please give a warm round of applause for Mariana.
Hello, everyone. My thesis was simply going to be a collection of nonfiction essays about climate change and pollution, but I happened to write it in Ames, Iowa. So as I wrote about these topics, I had to add a new layer with all my lived experiences here, in which I encountered care and kindness. My thesis is about exploring the underlying meaning of environmental terms, but it really is also about me discovering the meaning of community. So thank you all for that. I'll begin with an excerpt from an essay titled A Call for Land and Language Revitalization. And for those of you who were in poetry workshop with me this semester, this is the essay that goes with the Soil Horizons collage. In Middle English, during the 15th century, soil was used to refer to the surface of the earth or ground, or to a stretch of land, physical, an estate, or a geopolitical division. However, it was also connected to the sense of home. Soil could mean birthplace or place of residence. In the 1800s, child of the soil referred to someone native to a land or country, but could also be used to mean someone engaged in cultivation. To change one's soil was a phrase used in the mid-16th and mid-17th centuries to signify moving. These phrases indicate a close relationship with land and place, presented in what appears to be a more meaningful and intimate tone. However, the phrase Lord of the Soil was also used around the 17th century to refer to the owner of an estate, depicting a very different and colonial relationship, focused on ownership and unbalanced power dynamics. Meaning-making is a form of world-building. Through words, we don't only build fictional worlds, but we construct and reshape reality. Our relationship with the soil and the meanings this term evokes can reflect the subduing of the land through tillage and industrial farming, or the regenerative possibilities of sustainable agriculture. Just as living beings, soil can recover from illness and heal. It only takes 1 or 2 years after introducing cover crops to a farm to transition from weak, sick soil towards a healthier state. And with it comes the recovery and growth of all the life that soil makes possible. Pulling from the wisdom of indigenous and Western science together, and keeping the knowledge alive in our words, helps us enact healthier behaviors and true land and ecosystem conservation. Cultivating attentiveness allows us to reshape our approaches to other beings and places. It recognizes the need to make space for differences and alternative modes of being, to accept even uncomfortable but necessary relationships, acknowledging that every body, being, land, water, has the same right to exist and to occupy space as our own does. Our words can be used to foster this awareness and actively become involved and engaged with the environment, as a member of a biological, cultural, and language community, and a caretaker of the land. Since my thesis is multi-genre, I'd like to share a kinship poem next. I spent last summer in Lakeside Lab taking a literature and multi-species kinship course, and that really reshaped my entire thesis. So this is called Axis Mundi. Forest carpet roots entwined with mycorrhizae, going down for miles, root and filament as one. Tree to fungi, fungi to tree, worldless communication, perpetual reciprocity, wisdom kept for eternity. When everything else falls apart, an essence endures, written in soil, spread throughout roots, a message older than time, carried by wind and water, ever-changing, evolving, imprinted in rock. Listen to the voices of rivers, conversations of lake with breeze, whispers of falling raindrops, murmuring grass, rustling leaves, a new iridescent world created within an instant, as we encounter each other through shared breath. In this gap, enough space to hold collective joy and grief, our entangled lifeways. And finally, I want to read an excerpt from an essay titled On Placemaking and Belonging. Over 1 billion years ago, the Earth's crust was split by a series of cracks forming a rift. As lava flowed through it and then cooled down, it filled areas ranging from Canada to the American Midwest with basalt rock. One such place is now the Interstate State Park on the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin. As I hike through the park, I read this in one of the information signs. I touch some of the rocks thinking about how the material that they are made of used to be in the mantle of the earth. But now, so many years after, I can connect to it. It is like a link across time to the inside of the planet, and the idea fills me with awe and wonder. I imagine different events in history, big and small, taking place around it, a diversity of beings coming in contact with it or passing nearby, and that same rock just remains there, a common bond by simply existing, an anchor to deep time, an eternal witness. I contemplate the water on the St. Croix River. I try to think about what my presence is doing to the place as I step on every rock. As I observe the landscape, I feel grateful for the gift of being able to take it all in. The stunning views, the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves of trees, the feeling of grounding, the invitation to touch the past. This is a different form of connection, which place also provides across the ages. A place remains the constant that links beings and generations. The vocabulary that Mesoamerican indigenous groups use to refer to the body often shares meaning with words related to the land. Mexicas call the body Intlali Insoquitl, meaning the land and the clay. Contemporary mixtecs use the term composed of the words for flesh, earth, and us, and Amuscos use the term Sitso, which translates as flesh soil. In their origin stories, these groups narrate how humanity was created from and made of soil. In naming the body with a concept that is so closely related to the land, they build an intimate relationship with it. Scholars think that the word soul shares an etymology with sea, because early Germanic peoples believed that the spirit was born of water and returned to water after death. It also shares an etymological root with the Old Frisian sel, meaning salvation. This idea is connected to the Christian tradition and defines the soul as something unique to humans and judged by religious moral precepts. Through time, this word has played a role in our understanding of animacy and morality, and reflected different cultures' understanding of life and death, values, and the position of humans within the environment. The terminology around personhood, land, and body guides our attitudes and behaviors towards the land and environment. The way we understand these terms shapes worldviews and can either be used to regard other living beings as equals or to establish power structures. Reshaping our relationships with the environment involves understanding that humans depend on the earth and not the other way around, and recognizing our interdependence with other beings and the cycles of the earth. Thank you. And finally, I'm really happy that I get to introduce my really close friend, Marisol. She's an amazing person. She's really fun. She's very selfless and creative and very kind, and I'm really happy that we get to share this space now. So Marisol Karks grew up in the Bay Area and writes fiction. She graduated from McGill University in Montreal before teaching in English in France. She enjoys learning new languages and comes from a multicultural Hispanic, Latino, and Jewish background. She hopes to become a beer brewer. Marisol Karks.
I'm the last one. I'm going to make it short and sweet. Got one poem. I want to thank my friends who are all here. I want to thank Daniel for giving up his birding time to be here. I want to thank Professor Peter Elbow, the cat, Person, the dog. I want to thank our professors here who were just very crucial to our growth, in particular for me, Kenny Cook, KL Cook, who I feel lucky to have had as a mentor these past 3 years. And I'll say the best part about my time in Ames was meeting the love of my life, Elizabeth Winger, who is just a wonderful, generous, kind, sweetest person I've ever met, and who feels like a miracle that we cross paths, and also she's my fiance, so. So I got into poetry, and I was just writing a lot of love poems. This is called Grant Me Your Name. Grant 30,000 words to me, and I will clasp your name to my hip. Grant me words like top hat or waffle or brain or raincoat. I will find every word and list them for you to enjoy. I have no dollars, only a definite abundance of mail in the entrance to my house, such as bills claiming my cash. Grant me 3 words like your name, my name, the name of your dog, and I will dole them out like mashed potatoes eagerly. I will crunch the words I don't need on my teeth. I will create a mosaic of precious words to tell you every night, like come under the sheets, like I will warm you, like your leg on mine, like give me your shoulder to kiss, like safe, like silky-haired girl, like easy sleeping. Every single unused word that remains I will collect on a string of pearls and read off to you like an idle bird on a branch. That's it. Thanks, everybody. So that's the show, folks. Thank you guys for coming. I encourage you to eat some food on your way out, write some letters. If you're one of my cohort, don't forget to take your bag of letters if you want to take a last-minute photo. And thank you all for coming and supporting us. Really appreciate it.